Welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. Hundreds of U.S. troops are shipping out to the Middle East in response to a violent attack on the U.S. Embassy in Iraq's capital. The first day of the new year, hundreds of thousands of people packed Hong Kong streets for an annual New Year's Day protest march. A safety patrol is making an effort to protect Jewish people in Brooklyn, New York. They were there in the 1990s, now they're back, but were never forgotten. Conflicting details emerge about how former Nissan boss Carlos Ghosn escaped from house arrest in Japan and managed to make it to Lebanon as an international fugitive. And 500,000 Londoners braved the cold, lining the streets to watch the New Year's Day parade. Defense officials have now confirmed that the U.S. will be deploying more troops to the Middle East following an attack on the U.S. Embassy in Iraq's capital.
According to the Pentagon, about 750 U.S. soldiers with the 82nd Airborne Division were rapidly deployed to Kuwait on Wednesday. That's in addition to the Marines who are already on location in Iraq, protecting embassy personnel. Fox News reported that as many as 4,000 troops could be sent to the region in the coming days if needed. NTD could not independently verify this. The surge of U.S. forces comes after an outbreak of violence at the U.S. Embassy compound in Baghdad. On Tuesday, protesters angry about U.S. airstrikes on Iranian targets in Iraq hurled stones, set fires, and chanted "Death to America" at the embassy. They breached an outer perimeter of the heavily guarded embassy, but did not enter the main compound. The defensive airstrikes were approved by President Trump in response to the death of a U.S. defense civilian contractor who was killed in a rocket attack on an Iraqi military base last week. The president accuses Tehran, through militia action, of orchestrating the attack and the protest. On Wednesday, the Iraqi state-sponsored organization PMF said the demonstrators' message has been heard and called for a withdrawal. By mid-afternoon, most of the protesters appeared to obey and leave the embassy premises. The protests mark a new turn in the shadow war between Washington and Tehran. President Trump threatened to retaliate against Iran on Tuesday, but said later he did not want to go to war.
In Hong Kong, a largely peaceful march. Crowds gathered today for an annual New Year's Day pro-democracy protest as the months-long demonstrations extend into 2020.
January 1st is traditionally a day of protest for Hong Kongers, but this year the crowd was significantly bigger, with people of all ages coming out to demonstrate. Protesters held up their hands with 5 fingers outstretched to symbolize the 5 demands of the movement. After a clash broke out between a small group of protesters and the police, the march was abruptly called off by the authorities. What exactly led to the clash remains unclear, but soon after it began, police fired tear gas and pepper spray into the crowd. Several injured people were seen lying on the ground. Police said they arrested some 400 people on the first day of the new year. Despite the sudden cancellation, the turnout was high. Organizers estimated that more than 1 million people took part. Hong Kong has been mired in more than 6 months of pro-democracy protests. Demonstrators are demanding full democracy and an independent inquiry into accusations of police brutality.
New York police are asking for help identifying individuals connected to 2 Christmas Eve assaults of Hasidic Jewish men in Brooklyn. The NYPD released video of one of the attacks on Tuesday. It shows a group of men approaching a 23-year-old. One of them hits the victim in the head with a chair, another punches him in the face, and another man menaces him with a stick. In the first incident, which took place about half an hour earlier, a group of men approached a 56-year-old man from behind. One of them punched the victim in the back of the head, knocking him to the ground. Both victims declined medical treatment. Authorities ask anyone with information to call the NYPD's Crime Stoppers hotline. And Jewish elders in New York City have sought the help of the Guardian Angels. NTD's Miguel Moreno went to Crown Heights to see the safety patrol in action.
Once the ball drops, it's like...
It's New Year's Day, but this safety patrol isn't taking the day off.
And we're being vigilant, and we've been out here since Saturday morning.
In light of a recent surge in anti-Semitic attacks in New York City, they're patrolling Crown Heights and other Jewish neighborhoods in the city. Casey said Jewish elders reached out to the group's founder because they thought Mayor Bill de Blasio wasn't doing enough, and the welcome has been warm.
They were just like so in awe because they knew Curtis was going to be out here, and they knew he was going to stick to his work because, like I said, they remembered that we were out here very, vigilant at 91.
In 1991, blacks and Jews broke out in riots after the death of a black child in a traffic accident and the retaliatory killing of a Jewish man. Now they're back.
I still think it's pretty cool that these guys came down. I think it's nice. I think it shows support to the Jewish community.
When it comes to anti-Semitism, anyone that can do something about putting an end to it and bringing awareness to it will gain a lot of blessing in their life.
In 2019, the city saw a nearly 20% increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes, 229 in total. After 5 Jews were stabbed last weekend in Muncie, the mayor and governor sent more police to Jewish neighborhoods. But to some, more law enforcement or safety patrols aren't the answer.
What to do, and I think the only solution to the anti-Semitism is dialogue and realizing that these people, not saying anti-Semitism is ever justified or attacks are ever justified, but some of these people really do feel marginalized.
The Guardian Angel said they'll stay in these areas for as long as they're needed. And on Sunday, Jewish organizations and advocacy groups are holding a no hate, no fear solidarity march where they'll march across the Brooklyn Bridge to Columbus Park. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
Nissan's former boss and international fugitive Carlos Ghosn is said to have been smuggled out of Japan by an undisclosed private security company. Media reports that he was personally received by Lebanon's own president after arriving in the Mideast, though this has not been independently verified.
More details are emerging over how Nissan's former boss, now an international fugitive, escaped from Japan and apparently was received by Lebanon's own president after reaching that country. Reuters sources are now saying that Carlos Ghosn was smuggled out of Japan by a private security company onto a private jet. Even the pilot was unaware that Ghosn was aboard. The plot is said to have been the result of 3 months of planning. The sources close to the former auto titan also say that Lebanon's ambassador met Ghosn daily while he was on house arrest in Tokyo. Lebanon does not have an extradition treaty with Japan and says it has no plans to take action against him. The Lebanese president's office denies that the two men met, and there are still a lot of unknowns. Lebanon says Ghosn entered the country of his childhood, legally, using a French passport, even though the man's French, Lebanese, and Brazilian passports are with his lawyers in Japan. How he got through Japan's airport security, also unknown. And there's a daring tale being spun in Lebanese media that he was smuggled out of his house under surveillance inside a container of musical instruments after a private party. His wife denies it. His internet and phone communications were restricted during detention. Carlos Ghosn was under arrest on allegations of financial crimes before he was fired from Nissan. He denies it all and says he was a victim of a boardroom coup.
Thousands of performers from around the world took part in London's annual New Year's Day parade today.
Around 10,000 performers entertained crowds for London's 34th annual New Year's Day parade. Confetti rained down on the streets as band after band marched by. Around 500,000 spectators lined the streets to watch the festivities, waving flags. Giant inflatable balloons bobbed along the streets, helped along by little cars. Motorcyclists performed daring stunts, showing off their balancing skills. And some of the famous characters from movies and shows also joined the parade, from Ghostbusters, SpongeBob, and Ninja Turtles. Star Wars characters were also out in force. A big part of the parade is raising money for charity. The parade has raised almost $2 million for London charities since its founding in 1987. Millions watch the event broadcast around the world every year, but this is the first time the parade was broadcast in the U.S.
And one of the globe's most watched New Year's Eve spectacles, New York welcomed 2020 with its iconic drop of a crystal ball in Times Square. The rest of the world also celebrated the new year with fireworks displays from London to Rio de Janeiro.
Hundreds of thousands of people braved the weather, watching the glowing New Year's Eve ball complete its midnight descent to mark the start of 2020. The thrilling moment was reward for enduring hours of standing.
It's going to be a great year. Why is that? Because God gives me another year and another day. What are you looking forward to? It was said tonight to be all that God calls me to be.
Perfect way to start the year. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be here.
So I'm so happy. We got married just 6 months ago, so it's our first Happy New Year.
In Berlin, crowds gathered at Brandenburg Gate celebrating New Year's Eve. The occasion marks the 25th time Berlin has hosted Germany's largest outdoor New Year's Eve party. London welcomed in 2020 with a fireworks extravaganza over Big Ben. And as others celebrated with fireworks, a region in the United Arab Emirates nation set 2 Guinness World Records. One for the most unmanned aerial vehicles for launching fireworks simultaneously, and the second for the longest fireworks waterfall.
Coming up, 2019 results show that the majority of states saw declines in student reading performance, despite the use of federal funding to address this ongoing problem. More on that after the break.
Oh, the show is phenomenal.
This is the best ever.
The way I look at Shen Yun is this heavenly experience. I have never seen in my life so many amazing dancers, so many amazing and beautiful costumes.
Everything in the movements, in the smile, in the emotion, they could bring grace. I was taking my dish, I was really impressed.
The back extension, the leg extension, the rotation, absolute perfection. I just have chills, can you tell?
The music is really extraordinary.
It sounded like it was pre-recorded, like it was so perfect. And I looked down and I could see all the orchestra playing. It was hard to believe it was actual live music. It was so perfect.
I like how it's not just beautiful with the colors and the music, but also it's funny because there's some storytelling elements to it.
I love every moment, especially the message of the Chinese ancient culture.
There's no other company in the United States that does this.
My heart was touched tonight. And every time I see actors perform with grace and dignity like that, it's a spiritual experience in itself.
I see God. I see the spirit of love and peace and the way that you would want the universe to be.
The energy that I got from watching is that internal spirit that I think that we all have that comes from our Creator. And I could feel that in my heart and in my soul.
I would tell my friends to see Shen Yun because it is life-changing. And you'll walk away feeling positive and like you want to help the world be a better place.
Everyone should see something so pretty.
Our kids are 6 and 8 years old, and they enjoyed it and would like to come back to see it again.
I think it's for all people, and everyone needs to see it. Absolutely everyone.
A new report shows that students' test scores are slipping. Many 2020 presidential candidates are proposing more funding to address ongoing public education issues. NTD's Melina Wisecup gives us more details about the current status of school funding and how it relates to student achievement.
Let's recap yesterday.
A recent report from the National Assessment of Educational Progress shows that in most states, reading scores have been declining since 2017. The test is given every 2 years to measure students' proficiency in core subjects. Even more, the achievement gap is widening between higher and lower performing students.
For 50 years, at the federal level, we have invested over $1 trillion just at the federal level alone to try to improve and to narrow the achievement gap between those on the highest end of the spectrum and those at the lowest end. And over $1 trillion later, that gap has not narrowed one bit. So the solution is not more resources from the federal level. It's really doing something completely different.
On the other hand, a common platform among many of the 2020 Democratic presidential candidates are their proposals to increase funding for lower-income schools. For example, Elizabeth Warren proposes to quadruple Title I funding, while Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker, and Joe Biden are all proposing to triple Title I funding. According to a report by Education Week, New York spends the second highest amount on education of any state, around $20,000 per student each year. That's well over the $13,000 national average, but this year's scores show that New York is one of the states that ranks below average on the national assessment test. A New York high school student who previously attended a private school and now attends a gifted public school says some of his peers lack a sound education.
I got to see many of the flaws in their education and the gaps in their knowledge come to light, especially in English classes, for example, where we would often have to peer edit our essays before handing them in. And I got to see how some people were not taught English grammar properly.
While the issue likely stems from many areas, an education policy expert gives insights into how public schools can address the issue.
You're also going to have to talk about standards. The fact of the matter is the bar for American, not just New York City, but American education is set ridiculously low. There's also a lot of things that you don't need money to fix. The fact is it does not cost any more in kindergarten to read children a higher level book than it does to read them Dr. Seuss.
Other suggestions from Adams and many education experts include developing a platform that will allow and encourage teachers to focus more on each child's individual qualities and capabilities. Melina Wisecup, NTD News, New York.
Up next, we join swimmers around the world for a refreshing splash into the new year after the break.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
Are you tired of newspapers spinning the truth and pushing false narratives? And are you looking for honest coverage of Spygate, the true story of collusion? Or the truth behind the crisis at our southern border? Or how the Chinese Communist Party is working to subvert America and our way of life? Then you need to check out the Epoch Times newspaper. It's independent, nonpartisan, and it doesn't push any political agendas. Just go to readepoch.com and try it yourself for a full month for just $1. You'll absolutely love it.
People welcome in the new year in different ways, but for some, plunging into the winter water is the perfect way to start the year.
Today, swimmers around the world take a plunge into icy cold waters to celebrate the new year, a tradition that goes back decades. In New York, swimmers run into the seawater to drum roll.
You wash off the last year and you welcome in the new year. God bless America.
In Italy, 4 men dove off a bridge 49 feet down into the Tiber River in Rome.
Clearly, the adrenaline rises, but there is immense pride for me as a citizen of Rome to do something that goes around the world.
The tradition of diving into the Tiber River on New Year's Day started over 70 years ago, but was on and off until it was picked up again by a group of divers.
I hope we can get at least one person who can help carry on this Roman tradition that first started in 1946.
In Berlin, swimmers take a dip in the lake in fancy dress, not only for the New Year's tradition, but also for the health benefits.
I find it great to be a little bit crazy, but it also makes you healthy. I have not been sick for many years.
She's been doing this for many years. She said once you start the winter swimming, you can't stop because it's just that good.
A Florida doctor earned his veterinary stripes on Monday. Muhammad Awad had just worked a full shift when he came home to see a woman with a dog waiting at the elevator. But that dog's leash was stuck in the door, and when the elevator went up, it took the dog with it. Awad jumped into action to try and free the dog from its leash. It finally snapped, sending Awad and the dog crashing to the ground. He said it happened so fast it doesn't even feel like it's him in the video. And science suggests giving can actually ease physical pain. According to a new study, volunteering can affect your physical well-being.
A peer-reviewed journal published a new series of studies Monday. Researchers said the studies found that people experiencing pain benefited instantly from doing good deeds for others. For instance, one study found those who volunteered to give blood after an earthquake experienced less pain than non-volunteers. Another study found that volunteers helping children of migrant workers experienced less pain in cold temperatures than non-volunteers. The benefits of helping others include pain reduction among both healthy adults and cancer patients with chronic pain conditions. Researchers believe this is because of regions of the brain that react to painful stimulation. They say those areas seem to be deactivated during altruistic acts.
Up next, French chefs explore ways to surprise customers with innovative cuisines from the top floor of a popular Paris department store. Find out what's cooking after the break.
Buongiorno, Fuishan, agus Fuivasa.
Feliz Año Nuevo. Que este nuevo año tenga mucha felicidad y prosperidad para todos.
Så vill jag önska er alla ett riktigt gott nytt år.
Bonne année 2020 à tous et à toutes. Une année remplie de bonheur, de prospérité et de santé.
Chào các bạn. Chúc mừng năm mới, an khang thịnh vượng, vạn sự như ý.
आप सबको नववर्ष की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं.
سال نو را به همه تبریک میگم و امیدوارم که سال خوب و خوشی dاشته bashim.
Vă doresc un an fericit cu multe împliniri și liniște sfântească. La mulți ani.
Buon anno nuovo, che i bei momenti di queste giornate possano diventare dei bei ricordi per il futuro. Buone feste a tutti.
新年快乐，祝大家万事如意.
אני מאחל לכם שנה טובה.
신혼의 төргий 2020-д амар амгалан амжилт бүтээлээр дүүрэн байх болтугай гэж хүсэн ярив.
祝大家新年快乐，心想事成，万事如意.
Yeni yılınız kutlu olsun. 2020 yılı sağlık, mutluluk ve huzur dolu olsun.
새해 복 많이 받으시고 가족 모두 행복하세요.
明けましておめでとうございます.
Frohes neues Jahr, viel Erfolg und Gesundheit im neuen Jahr.
Season's greetings. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season and I wish you a bright new year ahead.
In the area of gourmet cuisine, the coming of the winter holiday season is celebrated with new menus and recipes. At a French department store, chefs have to put their imagination and talent to work to surprise their guests. Our French correspondent David Vives has the story.
Imagine a place where you can choose different delicious dishes from different restaurants while enjoying one of the most beautiful views of Paris. This is all possible at the top floor of Parisian department store Printemps. Emmeline Perrault and Francois Louvel are two of the head chefs here. Perrault only cooks vegan food, while Louvel prepares the fish and seafood. Although their specialties are different, their objectives are the same: surprise the customer and help him discover new flavors. For Louvel, the day begins with preparing seafood.
The clams live in the sand, so we need to wash them with cold water.
In France, fresh seafood is a popular choice for celebrations.
With seafood platter, people can share the same platter. They pick any food they like. It's convivial because there are 4 of us around the table. Each one comes to take what he eats on the tray. There are several small sauces. It's something that makes you smile.
The chef carefully washes the seafood and prepares the sauce that's served with it. It seems like a simple process, but there's a challenge.
Preparation needs a lot of attention. Make it simple. That doesn't mean that's easy to do.
According to the chef, a cook should be like a craftsman, using his hands as much as possible on everything he prepares, like for this striped bass served with spinach, herbs, and raw mushrooms. After training with French chef Bocuse, Louvel arrived at Printemps a year ago.
All my work comes from French culinary basis and traditions. In any gourmet cuisine, as a cook, this is my ground for any creation.
A few meters away, the decorations change. Fresh, raw vegetables, brightly colored fruits. This is Supernature, the vegan restaurant and grocery store. The mission of its chef, Perrault, is simple: to wow the customer.
We have a lot of tourists coming to France. People enjoy coming to taste a dish of French gastronomy, vegan version.
And in her effort to replace meat and fish, Perrault has everything she needs. The chef says she likes to make surprises and amuse the guests. One necessary ingredient for that is to make the food attractive.
Here's the bacon, coconut chips marinated in tamari with paprika. It gives a smoked taste with the soup. Humans have taste buds in the mouth, but also in the eyes. We have 5 senses, and all of them are involved in what I call gastronomy.
And now comes this winter's signature dessert, a pavlova.
This cake is like a choreography. There are different moves, different levels to it. First, we put a seaweed meringue with mango juice on it, then some cream and the fruits.
For Perrault, this fruit-based pastry requires elegance from within to bring joy to your guest. All of Printemps' multiple restaurants work with fresh products. In the store, old ways and traditions meet with new trends. The same etiquette and gracefulness is also carried throughout the restaurants.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.